The one divisions are not moving fast enough, and it's my job to book them all. Welcome to Shire TV Productions, and today I'm going to be booking each of the one divisions, going through each division and talking about what fights to make for each of the high-level fighters. Most of these I'm going to be basing it off of the rankings, but the divisions without rankings, I'm just going to be using my own criteria of trying to book at least 3 fights. With that being said, thank you all. I hope you enjoyed this video. Starting off the women's atomweight division, the current champion Angela Lee is out, and currently only number 1 ranked Stamp Fairtex is booked against Alicia Anderson for some reason. And number 2, Ziho Ham is booked against Itsuki Hirata and was assumably a title eliminator. As for the fights I would recommend making in the division, Denise Sambawanga and Tiffany Teo are both coming off of wins, so I would say book them against each other. Then have the winner of that fight the winner of Stamp Alicia for the next title shot. Outside the top 5, I would say rebook Ji-Hin and Jenlyn Oselin. That would be a good fight to make. And Ritu versus the winner of the upcoming Victoria Souza fight. Women's strawweight is a complete mess. The best thing I can recommend is signing a few more fighters. They don't even have to sign that much, just maybe 3 to amp up the division. But in the meantime, I would say have Diana Cardosa fight for the title against Zhang Jingnan. And then as for Meng Bo, maybe have her fight Michelle Nicolini because that's really the only person left. And then maybe have Wonder Girl just fight a random can just so she can progress a little bit as a mixed martial artist. That's really all I can recommend for this division. For the heavyweight division, the next title fight is booked between Arjun Boulard and Anatoly Molenkai. For the title eliminator, I would go with Umar Kane versus Amir Alakbari. Both of them are on 2-fight win streaks and bring a lot of eyes to one championship, so that one makes sense. Maybe book it on the March card along with the title fight. As for what should be next for Marcus Almeida, have him fight Dustin Johnson. He's coming off of a win and has been begging for a fight for quite a long time, so I think that makes the most sense as building along on Marcus Almeida. For the rest of the division, do Muriel Cirilli versus King Jae-won. That should just be an explosive fun fight for the fans. Then I would say do Kirill Grashenko versus Ode Delaney. How do you do with someone with a strong Greco-Roman wrestling base? The light heavyweight division, the best thing I can do is say have Paul Elliott, Bat Suarez Gassiev, Duke Dieter, and Anderson Broderick Silva all go down to light heavyweight, because all those guys are very small for the heavyweight weight class and will just be picked apart by the heavyweights. Have the 4 of those guys do like an unofficial tournament, the winner of which gets the not-so-savory prize of having to fight Anatoly Molenkai, who has to cut weight. So that's the way I would say book the light heavyweight division. Next up in the middleweight division, the current champion is Renier de Ritter, and he'll be taking on Tai Rutolo in a grappling match in May. Ung La is taking on Fan Rong, and if Ung La wins there, you have to give him a title shot because that's 3 in a row, and he's a big enough name to deserve it. For the rest of the division, I would say have Vitaly Bigdash take on Leandro Ataeres. It would be a long-awaited rematch, and we can see if anything has changed since then. And then have Shamil Erdogan take on Daniel Zainalov. Both of those guys are undefeated, and I think that fight makes a lot of sense. You can probably just put that on like a 1 Lumpini card. Have the winners of those 2 fights fight each other for a title shot. And finally have Arash Madonna take on Ali Foldani. Both of those guys are Iranian middleweights. They have heavy hands, so it should be fun to watch. The current champion at the welterweight division, Christian Lee, is taking a break. For a title eliminator or an interim title, do Roberto Saltage and Murat Ramazanov in a rematch. The first fight was just starting to get going before the foul, so it would be really interesting to see how that fight would play out. Outside of that, have the former champion Abasov take on Yuri Lapagis. Both of those guys are coming off of devastating knockouts, and I think that their styles are very contrasting. I would love to see how Abasov would deal with the crazy jiu-jitsu that Lapagis possesses. Have Sebastian Caston take on Hiroki Tatsuka. These 2 were originally booked about a year ago. This fight just spells fun. Both of these guys are very excellent strikers with a lot of power. I think Sebastian Caston can knock out pretty much anybody. Hiroki is always in the mood for a brawl, whether it's beneficial to him or not. I would say then do Ruslan versus Volmir da Silva. Both of those guys are coming off of wins. For that fight, I think Ruslan is going to need to take down Volmir da Silva, or else he's going to be in for a very rude awakening in a fight that might send him back down to lightweight. And then finally, I would say do Aglantani versus Isuki Furugu. I would say give Isu another shot. He's 7-1. Aglantani is coming off of a win that was not aired live. The 2 have a clash of styles that could lead to a fun fight. I would say just put it on a Lumpini card. I think that's a decent fight for that occasion. Shinley is also the champion of the lightweight division, and likewise he'll be taking a break. The number 1 ranked Oak Rayun should be taking on Hali Amir. If Oak wants another shot at the title, he's going to want to take on the toughest fight possible, and Hali Amir is up there undefeated, just coming off of a spectacular knockout over Timofey. It's going to be interesting to see if Oak can make the proper adjustments and be able to deal with a striking heavy fighter. And I wonder if Hali Amir is going to have any problems at all with Oak's rather one-nose strike. After that, I would say have Dagi Asalaniev and Sajid Isgamayev, the number 2 and number 3 ranked fighters, fight each other. I think that Sajid has basically ragdolled everybody in one, and giving him someone with a relatively good wrestling background would be the best area to go in. If anyone's going to be able to defend his takedowns, I think Dagi will be it, and Dagi could definitely give Sajid some problems on the feet. Have the winner of Dagi Sajid fight the winner of Oak Hali Amir, either for an interim title or just a shot at the title itself. I think Zheng Lepang versus Shinya makes sense for the division. Both those guys are coming off of losses to Sajid, and both of their styles are kind of work well for each other. I think it would be interesting to see if Shinya still has it in him. It would be a good determiner in that. And Zheng Lepang, we would see how he does against such a heavy grappler. Have Lowen Tainas take on Edson Marquez. Both these guys fought on the same card back in December. They're coming off of multiple wins. Their styles contrast each other very well. How would Marquez deal with a heavy wrestler? How would Tainas deal with such a massive lightweight that could potentially defend his takedowns? Tang Kai is the current featherweight champion. He should definitely be taking on Ilya Freemanov in a couple next months for the title. Freemanov just annihilated Martin Nguyen. The fight between him and Tang Kai would be a striking masterclass. Two guys with heavy hands that know how to be very technical. It would be an excellent fight to watch. As for what should happen with Ton Lee, the number 1 contender, have him take on the undefeated 10-0 Aaron Canarty. Aaron is a high-level striker and very legit. He would be a good fight for Ton Lee to come back to and show if Ton Lee is really there. If he wins it, he'd be right back in the title mix. If not, Aaron gets a very solid win. And stylistically, I would love to see how Aaron does against someone like Ton Lee with a very karate-based style, with exceptionally heavy hands. Number 2 ranked Gary Tonin fight Kirill Gorobets. Gorobets just beat another grappler in Bruno Pucci, and he showed exceptional takedown defense in that fight. I would love to see how Gary Tonin does against someone that can defend takedowns pretty easily and has solid striking with some power there as well. I think it's a good fight for both men to get up in the division and get closer to a title shot. Unfortunately, Martin Nguyen and Shamil Gasnov are fighting each other next, and Shamil Gasnov is probably going to annihilate Martin. I think that with that win, Shamil should get a title shot. Finally, I think that the Korean Oh Tak should be taking on another newcomer in Akbar Abdullayev, who is undefeated and from Kazakhstan at 8-0. Akbar is a very solid striker. I would love to see how he does against Oh Tok. It would be an established name, someone coming off of a win. It would be a good placement for both men in the division, and it would help move both men up. In the bantamweight division, there currently is no champion. Number 1 and number 2 ranked Fabricio Andrade and Johnny Linker will be fighting for the vacant title. Unfortunately, number 3 Loman will not be taking on Kwon Won-il. I thought that fight would have been great to make for that event, just to keep both men busy. But instead, I would say have Loman just fight the winner of Andrade Lineker for the title. As for number 4, Bibiano Fernandez, I know he suffered a hand injury recently, so I'm not sure how quickly he'll be back. If he does want to come back soon, I would say have him fight Artem Belyak. He just beat Leandro Issa back at 162. Artem shows a propensity to do well against grapplers. He was in an absolute war, and I think he deserves a shot at Bibiano. It would be a very fun fight for both gentlemen, and if the prime Bibiano is still there, you know he's always gamed for a war. Have Kwon Won-il fight Jeremy Pakitu. Pakitu is coming off of a win over Teo Tang back in December. It makes sense, as Kwon Won-il can basically have a story off of it. That would be the second Team Lakai guy he beat, and he can basically just name himself a Team Lakai killer, leading into a title shot with him versus Loman. Drex Zamboanga versus Shoka Sato also makes sense. Drex is undefeated at 3-0, and Shoka Sato seems like a solid improvement up the ranks for him. And if Peruv and Shiakama Kubo are still with one, I would love to see both men fight each other. Both of them are undefeated grapplers, very high level with only 1 losses over their total career. I think both of those guys would put on a very entertaining contest. EJ is taking on Adriano Moraes in the main card. That should be a blast. Number 2 ranked Cameron Apasov. I would say wait for the Danny King at Iko Ronnie Saputra fight. If Iko Ronnie Saputra somehow beats Kingad, have Akhmatov and him fight in a title eliminator on that same card. If Danny Kingad wins that fight, then just wait, as Kingad and Akhmatov just fought and it did not go well for Kingad. do number 4 Reese versus Woo Sung-hoon, the guy that just knocked out Ii Wakamatsu. I think that would work perfectly. Woo Sung-hoon might have the heaviest hands of the whole division. Reese McLaren has a pretty good chin on him. It has the jiu-jitsu advantage there. It should be a fun fight. For some reason, Zai Wei is ranked despite losing his last fight to Reese McLaren. I would say for him, just have him fight Hu Young, the guy that just absolutely obliterated Jae, or maybe give him a Katharati Agasa, an Indian wrestler who just got a first-round knockout. Jared Brooks should be fighting Gustavo Ballart for the title next. Ballart is on a 3-fight win streak. He's most desirable for next. Should be an interesting contest. As for number 1 Joshua Pacquiao, have him fight Jeremy Miyato next. It would be a very fun clash of styles. Both of those guys are very quick and have good striking. I would love to see if Jeremy Miyato's offensive wrestling and timing with his jabs would give Pacquiao any problems. And the winner of that fight should probably get a title shot. As for Bokang, I would prefer if Bokang went up to flyweight, because like the rule should be if you miss weight twice, you should just be forced to go up 1 weight division. If he does stay there, I would say give him a Senzo Akita. Akita's on a 2-fight finishing streak and definitely deserves a shot thrown in the top 5. For the number 3 ranked Roby Minowa, have him fight Manur Malachivov, the undefeated Russian at 10-0. Manur has a lot of legit wins to his name, fighting an Eagle FC, getting a win over an 8-1 guy, finishing him. He definitely should be given someone in the top 3 to start off with. Roby Minowa is hoping to bounce back from a loss to Jared Brooks. It's a perfect fight for both guys. Williams, have him fight up Banama Doji, the guy that Dej Danwarum knocked out back in 2021. I think that fight is good for him to bounce back on if he does return to MMA. It will be a fight with a young prospect that's pretty good at striking.